So I'm going to throw this up on the Entertainment Guy channel. Because why not? I can take over the TEG channel even though I'm still wearing my hockey stuff. Why? It's a question I find myself asking, and it's not hockey related, so I'll throw it on the Entertainment Guy channel. So, why? There's a lot of whys, and it mainly comes down to the trolls and the unsubs. This is something I've noticed over the last few weeks. Now, I'm going to say that with the economy where it is, and it's bad, it is horrible. And even though there's signs of recovery, and things were recovering when it came to the revenue side of things on the YouTube part of it for me, and then we had the protests start, and that seems to have caused things to dip again. Things have gotten kind of ugly again. But, this is 2020, so hey. And so I understand that in this economic state, trolls are going to be a little more, I don't know, lippy, a little more angry, a little more persistent. I've even noticed trolls showing up on my channel, and I'm like, I know who that is. I banned your other account, and then I ban another one, because, all right. It doesn't really accomplish anything, where I'm like, oh, I know who that is. All right, yeah, you're, okay. I'm not sure. And then I wonder to myself too, like for people who want to troll, why do they keep clicking on it? Like for me, if I don't like a channel, I just stop watching it. I may unsub, but I don't announce that I'm unsubbing. And that's the other thing that I find funny. And I've seen I've my favorite comment on that is, it's not an airport. You don't have to announce your arrivals and departures. It's the greatest thing on the internet. And so when people decide, I'm done, I'm leaving, I'm not sure why they'd have to announce that, because I've never done it. There are channels that have lost me along the way, and I've said, yeah, I can't watch that now. Or for whatever reason, I don't necessarily get mad at channels either. That's the other part that I have a hard time identifying with, where I don't get mad at channels. What Culture, not What Culture Wrestling, but What Culture in general, they had a big falling out that took place. I want to say it was 2 years ago, and a lot of people took sides. There were a lot of people who unsubscribed from What Culture, and they got all mad, and I never unsubscribed. I wasn't a big fan of what happened, but I didn't say anything pro or against it, because it didn't affect my everyday life, and I didn't think it was that big of a deal, and so I didn't see the need to go nuts online. So what we're seeing right now is that with the protests and with the ongoing economic uncertainty, and with 2020 just being a mess, we're seeing more anger. And so, and I get that part, and it's definitely tied to both of these things. So for somebody who maybe they were mad about things before, well, now they've lost their job. Now, maybe all these families that are in quarantine. One thing that Yvonne and I were talking about a lot was how many marriages we thought could be ended from quarantine. How you put two people into a room together who don't necessarily get along very well, and you force them to be in that enclosed space for weeks and weeks on end, and you have all of the economic uncertainty, you have job losses, you mix that in with them being told to stay home. And you're going to have divorces coming out of that. So there's a lot of reasons why I can understand that 2020 is bad. Like I've been thinking about, like if this had happened 7 years ago, in relationship I had before this one, that wouldn't have worked, because her and I were completely different people, and so it would have expanded on the conflict between the two of us that wasn't really spoken of. But it would have increased that. But I'm looking at everything that's going on, and of course the fact that I go to channel 1115 on my TELUS box, which is NHL Center Ice, and I go to that when I do videos because there's no games, and it's weird that I don't have to worry about that being anything other than the NHL logo and Center Ice games. And thank you for subscribing. Currently, there's no games on. Yada yada yada. Because again, that's what I'm waiting for to see come back, and odds are I won't see a games on there in their current fashion until next season, which is probably January. It's and the other thing for me is where I feel kind of stuck is in terms of the protests. So about a week ago, I said, I'm staying out of it. It's not my place. And now they've been going on for 12 days, and I still feel kind of like it's not really something I need to talk about in videos. But I've been sharing on Twitter. I've been retweeting things that I feel like maybe make a point that I think is important, and I think, all right, so we'll throw that out there. And it says it says a lot about things in general being as they are right now. These have turned global. This isn't just something that's happening in the United States. It's turned global. And so what we're seeing is that the populace in numerous countries are saying, what we see there, we see it here too. And so we stand in solidarity with what's going on there, and we're going to do that here too. And it does cross sports boundaries. So as much as I say, okay, so I report on sports and I report on things in TV and that's it. Well, almost every actor and actress that I follow is posting about these. Almost every hockey player, hockey team I follow, posting about these. Everything is pointing at this. So I don't have to say a whole lot. I don't. I could stand here and say nothing. But if I say nothing, this is the funny thing. I've been trolled both for not saying enough and for saying too much. And I think that's always when you can tell that you're probably riding the line pretty well, where both sides are saying, hey, that's not right. The way you are, you're not talking about it. And this is definitely affecting trolls as well. Because for people who don't want to see things change, right now we're seeing marches that we haven't seen since the 60s, which led to great change in the 60s, and they should lead to change again now. And when you're already in a position where maybe you've lost your job, maybe your income is no longer your income, add this to it, and it definitely makes it look worse. So, and again, the protests feed the anger feeds the protests. But it's a different kind of anger too. So it's not just people saying, okay, what happened to George Floyd is wrong. It's also people saying, hey, knock it off. There's more to it than that, and stop oversimplifying. And again, it's not something I would normally cover. But here we are. And 2020's been quite the year, and I'm trying to figure out the why of it. I'm trying to figure out why some of this stuff happens as it does, and not necessarily for some cosmic spiritual reason, but because I like things that make sense. I like things that are in order. So one reason that I'm big on sports is numbers. That I can say, okay, so here's what happened, and here's where you can look at the numbers and look into why. And that's why advanced stats, while I don't necessarily like them in sports, I think they're over-analyzed, they're interesting. And again, it's more numbers and it's more certainty, and we like certainty. We as a society, as a people, as a species, we like certainty. We like to understand that A, B, C happened for these reasons. That 2 + 2 = 4, and this is why that is. And we like to have that same level of certainty about everything. So, because I get asked in live streams, has trolling picked up? Yes. Complaining is picked up. And sometimes it's from people I don't expect. Sometimes it's from people I'm like, where did that come from? This is a person who's been a subscriber a long time. What's going on? And so, in some cases, I might reach out and say, what's up? And I've done that with subscribers before, where I've seen a lot of suddenly really hostile posting, and I'll message them and go, so what's going on right now? What's up? And I might get into a good discussion back and forth with them on it. Because again, I think the most important thing right now is to continue that discourse. And so for me, I try to make sure that discourse continues, but there are also certain lines that I feel shouldn't be crossed. So, the way I'll put it this way is, if it's indefensible behavior that's being defended, I do start to wonder about the person that's posting and think, now, why are you defending that side of the argument? And that's, that again, you can have a good discussion out of that, but odds are, it's probably going to turn into this and this. I know when my channel first started out about 4 years ago, where it started really picking up, and I really wanted to make sure I wasn't losing subscribers. If I had a day where I came out with a net of -2 subscribers, I went nuts. I'd be like, oh man, and I would keep track of who was subscribed and who wasn't. Like, oh, that person unsubscribed, why? And at this point, I don't do that. Now, it's not because I don't care. It's because at some point you say, you know what, this is going to drive me crazy. And I spent the first 40 plus years of my life going crazy over all the little things I couldn't necessarily change. And I became kind of a zombie in my everyday life to just try to zone out and just escape it and just forget it. And now, as a YouTuber, I do feel like when you have your community, that there is a certain amount of responsibility you have to that community. So I'm going to circle back on the idea that, okay, I'm not going to talk about this. Well, I do have a certain amount of responsibility with my community. And when I know people who are in my community are in this, and when I think to myself, okay, so if I was living in Washington, D.C., if I was living in New York, would I be out on a march? I might be. And again, if I was living in those areas, I would have lived a different life. I probably would have a different upbringing. Who knows? But again, I have to look at that and think, okay, where would I be and what would I be doing? And so I'm trying to also navigate some of the trolling, and sometimes it's the one thing that always makes me laugh. I do track people that say, that's it, I'm out of here. Never going to watch one of your videos again. And I'll track that name and I'll go, okay, I'll make a mental note of that. And then as soon as it shows up in the comment section again, I'm like, you're still here. And that happens a lot. It is very rare that somebody will say, that's it, I'm gone, and they're actually gone. It's very, very rare. It's almost like, it's like when you're dealing with a kid and they'll be like, I'm mad, I'm leaving. Okay, serious, I'm gonna go. Okay, all right, I'll talk to you then. Bye. No, you don't seem to understand. I'm actually gonna go. And they just keep that going. So anyways, that's what's on my mind tonight. That's where my head is at today, is that I see this, and I don't know, I try to handle it as well as I can. And at the same time, you kind of have to recognize, like I said, there was one in particular today that I was looking at just post after post after post, and I'm like, okay, I know who you are. I banned you before. This is the same. You're posting all of the exact same crap you posted last time. And you're just here to pick fights with people, and you're just here to get everybody riled up. Nope. So I hide user from channel, and you move on. That's another difference between when the channel started and now. Is that when the channel started, I would try to, have these conversations with people and try to, engage and have a meaningful discussion. Very often people have no interest in that, especially seemingly on the internet, where we have that anonymity for the most part. Creators don't. We don't have that anonymity unless you have a secondary user login. This is my secondary login, so I don't have anonymity there either. And of course, my third on Google is the email address that the main channel uses, so there's no anonymity there either. I've never been one to hide online when it comes to, my opinion. I've always been I can't remember creating troll accounts for any reason other than as a joke. And those troll accounts would be kind of to bother myself and have people going, what's this person? Yeah, anyways. But I don't, maybe that comes with being older. Having 40 plus years on this planet before I became a YouTuber, where I figured some stuff out. And I do consider as well that a lot of the behavior I see will often be the younger ones. The funny thing is, there have been conversations I've had with my wife as well, where she said, well, they're young, and I'm like, they're not, though. I know who that is. They're not young. They're about my age. She's like, really? Yeah. Wow. Seriously? Yeah. And then we have a moment of silence, and then we move on. So, all right. There you go. So if you're considering starting up a channel, realize you're going to get this, you're going to get this. And right now, it is going to be amplified because I think the overall economic situation combined with this, and this is where we're at. Thank you guys so much for all your support throughout. It does mean a lot. For fans on both channels, it means a ton as well. It does give me some level of certainty in my life, and I'm very grateful, and I'm very privileged, and I'm very blessed. So I don't take any of that for granted. I don't take any of it lightly, and I do consider my words very carefully in every video I do. So there you go. Thank you guys for everything, and if you're just browsing your way through, yeah, you can hit like and subscribe, sure, and I will talk to you again soon.